Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 687 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our ninth book just came out. It's called From Letters to Leaders, The Legacy of Service. So I want you to go and pick up that book on Amazon today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, today's college students are deathly afraid of failure. And I'm here to tell you that I've learned the biggest lessons in my life through my failures. You are going to have disappointments in life. I promise you it's going to happen at some point. But once you realize that you can reframe these failures as defining moments of learning instead of failure, it will help you to unlock new opportunities in life and achieve even higher levels of success. Our next guest is going to tell you a lot more about that. Charles Grimes is a business psychologist. For almost 30 years, he's been coaching individuals and teams to achieve way more than they ever thought they could. He's worked with many global brands. I'm talking about companies like Barclays, like British Airways, BP, Google, Lloyds Bank, McDonalds, Pfizer, Unilever, Virgin Atlantic. I mean, these are huge companies, and he's talking about this broad topic of leadership. Also, make sure you check out his book. It's called A Question of Leadership. Charles will help you take your team to the next level. Welcome to the show, Charles.
Oh, good evening. Yes. Well, yeah, good evening to me. Good afternoon to you. It's lovely to see you, Michael. Yeah.
It is great to see you again. I've really been looking forward to this because I think you have so much great information to share with college students all over the world, but certainly here in the United States. And, it's so interesting. I was reading your bio and some of these companies. I mean, British Airways, Google's, McDonald's, Pfizer, these are huge,
Hmm.
worldwide
Yep.
entities.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
and before all of that, you actually worked in broadcasting. You were working with the BBC, you were working with Radio Television Hong Kong. How did all of these experiences and all of these companies help to shape your view of leadership?
Okay. Well, thank you. So before that, I had another career, which I haven't mentioned yet, which is real estate. So I worked in real estate for, well, frankly, too long. That's I should never have done it. And we'll probably come on to that, what the thing I really wanted to do. But yeah, I ended up in real estate. And I think the thing I got from that was what I didn't want to do. It taught me that I could do it. I could keep up with people. I was, competent, but not a single day did I get up in the morning and think, let me look at a building. Never, not once. And so, yeah, but then I ended up going to Hong Kong through real estate. And then something extremely fortuitous happened where I was able to jump ship and move into the world of broadcasting. I'm a musician, and I'm classically trained, and I started work for Radio Television Hong Kong. They have a full-time classical music channel. And I started doing some freelance work for them, and then they thought my face would fit, so they offered me a job, and that was wonderful. And that, just like the real estate showed me what I didn't want to do, the broadcasting showed me exactly what I wanted to do, because this was, as I've said many times, this was not a job. This was being paid to play, being paid to go to concerts and announce them, being paid to go and talk to my heroes, people whose records I'd bought for years. And suddenly I'm in the room with a microphone recording an interview with them. So this was just wonderful. So I think the first thing I would say to any of your people listening is try and find out what you love, really, because we spend an awful lot of time at work, and if you don't love it, then it's going to be torture, really.
Yeah.
Now, I think at the same time, I've heard also one of my phrases is it's you want to do something you love, but perhaps don't do the thing you love. So just to counteract the broadcasting, one of the things, because it was about music, that I discovered after a year or two was I'd stopped listening to music as just for the sheer fun and beauty and pleasure of it. I was always thinking about, okay, well, I need 20 seconds of Beethoven here as an introduction. And that's so I'm listening, but I'm not listening. I'm treating it as an object. And that's one of the reasons I moved away from it. But just be aware of maybe not doing the thing you love, because then it will become a job, whatever you do. But do something you love. I
Yeah.
mean, if you just go and do something which you think will pay you, 250,000 a year. I mean, it's nice if you can get something you like that pays you 250,000 a year, but just to sell your soul is exactly that. So that I would just caution your listeners to think about that.
That's great advice there. And, I started out in accounting, believe it or not, and doing debits and credits. I got to tell you, I was miserable doing that. Yes, my bank account was full. There was no problem as far as money was concerned. The
Hmm.
issue
Yep.
was I wasn't fulfilled. And it was
Yep.
the worst existence I can possibly imagine, because you just feel like you're wasting your time doing something that you're not passionate about at all.
Yep.
What
Yep.
kind of a life is that? You start to think to yourself, what am I doing? Am I just going to be on this earth doing something that I'm unhappy with for the rest of my life? Yeah, okay, so it provides a good living, but so what? You have to feel fulfilled, and so that's really what you have to start thinking about is
Yep.
what you really enjoy doing, and also I think more to the point is what the world really needs of you. And that's different for everybody. Everyone needs to think about that, what the world really needs and how you can fill that need. So all of those things I think come into play. So that's really
Yeah. One of the phrases I've started using in recent months or the last year or so is, who are you meant to be? And now I know it's difficult if you're 20. I mean, I don't know it at the age of 72. So I should point out. So it's an ongoing quest.
yeah,
But one of the reasons I don't know it at the age of 72 is because it's always changing. We are always changing. That's one of the reasons. But okay, at the age of 20, you can still think, who am I meant to be? And now, if you're meant to be an accountant, that's wonderful. My son is an accountant and works at Deloitte in Houston and has a great time. Works extremely long hours, but is well paid, just as you were saying. So, it's not all bad by any means,
yeah,
but really think, yeah, who am I meant to be? And we might talk about that later.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
For sure. One of the other things about you that I find to be just fascinating is you actually got this Asperger's diagnosis. And when you got that diagnosis, that was liberating for you. So I'm trying to understand that. Why did it feel freeing to you getting this diagnosis of Asperger's rather than limiting?
Oh, well, for a start, for your listeners, I got it recently, or fairly recently. It was 6 years ago,
Mhm.
the 4th of December 2019. People with Asperger's tend to remember dates and
Sure.
numbers. And yeah, it was liberating, completely liberating. I mean, I left the place, the National Autistic Society in London, where I spent a day with a clinical psychologist, and I remember just walking out with a spring in my step, thinking, at long last, I have a way of understanding myself. So many of the pieces of my life jigsaw started falling into place. Ways that I behaved, even even back when I was 10 or 11. When I was 10 or 11, I went for about a year. I spent every evening drawing maps. I had the atlas, with all the maps, and I traced them all. Just started at page one and went all the way through to the end. and would just trace them and then make real works of art. And they were beautifully colored in. This was not a school project. The teachers never knew about this. And but I didn't do all sorts of things. I didn't do my vocabulary exercises that I was supposed to do at the age of 10. So I got all sorts of grief from the teachers, but they never knew how diligent I was if something really got my attention and my interest. So yeah, so I suddenly realized 6 years ago, I can see this all through my life. This if I'm passionate about it, I will just do it to any level, and I'll give all the time to it. So there were lots of things about that. So yes, it was absolutely liberating, and the main thing was being able to say or realize it's okay to be me,
Yeah.
that I don't have to pretend anymore, because one of the things that people with Asperger's or autism we often spend our time doing is hiding, is pretending that we're just like everyone else. So we mask or we camouflage in the sort of the jargon, and that's there are a couple of things that are wrong. Well, there's lots of things that are wrong with that. I mean, it's so I never, until really recently, and I'm talking about in my mid 50s, was able to think that I'm start getting it's okay to be me.
Yeah.
That's very late in life.
Yeah.
Frankly, I would be anyone you wanted me to be. Uh, and whilst that's nice in some ways, we could have a nice conversation about that. And you think, oh, Charles is a nice guy, because frankly, I just agree with you about everything. But while I'm doing that, over years, I'm not really developing Charles. So I didn't know. It could be about politics, it could be about religion, it could be about all sorts of different things. Yeah, I can see why you vote the way you do. I can see why, somebody else votes the way they do. But what do I think? And it's very late in life to start deciding these things. Now I'm doing it now, and it's very exciting, and I feel that it's I'm just things are really moving forward. Whereas a lot of people at my age are sort of closing down. I think I'm just about to take off. But it's yeah, it would have been nice if I'd done it a few decades earlier. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's a good lesson, I think, for all of our college student listeners. I think many of them are trying to fit in socially, and many of them feel like they're constantly masking certain parts of who they are. So
Yeah.
you've just given them a very good
It's
lesson to
it's it's
why.
awful. It's awful to do that. It
Yeah,
really is.
yeah,
And just okay, not you don't have to say it's okay to be me, but just to act that way, and suddenly the world will not come crashing down. If you say what you think, people are not going to say, "Who the hell are you to say that?" They're not going to, and if they do, well, who wants to be around them anyway? It's okay to say what you think,
mhm.
and the sooner the better. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, we need more people to say what they think. I think that's fantastic. Music is obviously a very big part of your life, and one of your leadership concepts that you talk about, you say listening is like a conductor. What does that mean?
Okay. Well, for a start, musicians, that's what they're really good at, is listening.
Mhm.
I mean, yes, it looks as if they're, if you go to an orchestra and they're all, playing their violin. Of course, they're doing that, but really, what they're good at is listening. In the way that my mother was an art teacher, and I remember as a little lad, watching her paint, and I just thought it was all in the way you use your brush strokes, but then she said she was painting some flowers, and so there's a bunch of flowers there, and she pointed to a leaf and said, "What colour's that?" Well, it's a leaf. So obviously I said it's green, and she said, "Well, look again. It's almost every colour but green. There are purples, there are oranges, there are yellows, there are reds, subtly in there." And the real thing that an artist can do is see. That's the real gift. They see what most of us don't see. And it's the same with musicians. They see what they listen, they hear what most people don't. And with conductors, there's something which it'll need explanation, but I talk about listening vertically and horizontally. So when you're playing, if you're conducting a piece of music or playing a piece of music, say a Beethoven symphony, it lasts 45 minutes. And of course, there are lots of intense moments, but there will be one in any particular piece. There will be one moment that is the absolute core of what the whole piece is about, and it might be in the third movement, in the slow movement, that really intense bit. So, but that might be half an hour away, 35 minutes away. But you're aiming at that. Everything is building up, with ups and downs, but you're building to that moment. And you don't want to be too loud early on, because otherwise this won't stand out. So you're judging everything. So when you're as a conductor, you're listening horizontally. But at the same time, you can't just do that. You can't just think about where are we going. You've got to be thinking at every moment vertically. Now, okay, I've got 75 people in front of me. I've got cellos and violins and the woodwind section. How are they balanced? Because, okay, I know it says in the score, it might say forte or piano, but okay, but what does that really mean? The only person that can tell is me as a conductor, because I've got this sort of helicopter view, if you like. Because when you're playing in an orchestra, you can't really hear very well, because you're surrounded by cellos or you're surrounded by French horns. And so the only person that has a really good, can hear everything, is the conductor. So they're constantly thinking, okay, you just need to keep a little bit quieter. You need to be a bit louder, maybe because of the acoustics of the hall. Maybe last night when we played it in a different place, this was okay, but tonight it wouldn't be. So we just need to sort of balance it. So at every moment, you're thinking horizontally, vertically, but you're also having to think horizontally. Now, it's exactly the same in a workplace. If you're a CEO, you have to be thinking, okay, well, what is the rest of this year? I mean, here we are, sort of 1st of July tomorrow, when we're recording this, that what's going to happen in Q3 and Q4, and what about next year? What does the next 12 months look like? But you can't just think about that. You've got to think about, okay, but what about today? How does the HR function? How is that? What about all these different silos that so often you get in an organization? You're going to make sure that actually we're functioning really well as a unit. We're all pulling together exactly today. So again, it's this sort of combination of vertically and horizontally that we have to sort of think about. I mean, it's the same in our families. You've got to think exactly the same way. Okay, what does the next few months at school look like, kids? But what about homework tonight? So it applies to all aspects of our life, I think.
Yeah. That's really helpful, I think, for all the leaders who are listening, thinking horizontally and vertically. You can't just think about your own committee or your own role. You also have to be thinking about where are we going, and long term, but also what's happening today, right? And how does that play in?
Sure.
So I think all of that is very, very helpful.
And for the students as well.
Yep.
You've got to have some long-term plan for if you've got another year at the university. Well, I've got to plan it out. But actually, what do I need to do this week? So it applies to in every aspect.
Yeah. I remember my first job that I got working for a very large publicly traded finance company. I was immediately placed as a manager, And I was leading people in the company who were much older than I was. I was, 21, 22 years old. So I had people that were reporting to me that were 10 years older than me. They had stronger personalities than me, for sure.
Yep.
And they had a lot more experience working for the company. I was brand new, just walked in yesterday, and I'm leading these people because of, my
Yeah.
experience in college, etc. So what advice would you give to some of these? It could be a newly elected organization president. It could be somebody who's new at a company responsible for all of these people who are older and have a lot more experience. What would you recommend for these folks?
Well, for a start, it's very common. Just going back to the orchestra analogy,
Mhm.
if you stand, I mean, I'm talking about professional orchestras here, not say a student orchestra.
Yeah.
That would be different. But if you're talking, if you're standing in front of the new, not that I ever have, you understand, but you stand in front of the New York Phil or the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. I mean, all conductors play an instrument. Most of them are pianists. They play the violin, and they're pretty good. But you know that as you're standing there, every one of these 75 people in front of you is better than you are. Every single one of them. So that, of course, begs the question. And also, they can do extraordinary things without you. I mean, but when you think about what does a conductor do, and many people would think, well, we help them start and finish and get louder and quieter, and well, actually, if you're talking about a standard work like a Beethoven symphony or a Brahms symphony, they can do all of that perfectly well without you. They could start the piece and get faster, and they could do it over all the movements. And actually, most people in an audience wouldn't tell the difference. It's that good. It's not about, I'm not criticizing the audience. It's that good. Now it's not the final amount of polish, but they are so good. So that begs the question then, well, what am I here for? But you are there for something. Otherwise, the orchestra wouldn't pay you. You are there for something, but it's not what most people think. And I think one of the things is you've got to work out what is it. I know what they can do, but what is it they can't do by themselves? And one of the things we've already touched on is listening. So I said, if the orchestra is playing flat, if say you're a French horn player, and there are probably five of you, and we're playing flat out here, well, you cannot hear anything else. I mean, because these are loud instruments. But it might be that you've got to play exactly with the cellos over there. You can see them, but you can't hear them. And likewise, they can't hear you. That they know that you've got to play together. The only way you can do that is by watching the conductor, so that when the conductor goes down on that downbeat, you know you will be. If you watch them, you will be together. So it's simple things like that. That it's what they can't do. It's also there are some things that it's when you're actually it's you're quite busy if you're playing in an orchestra or singing in a choir. You've got quite a lot to do, lots of notes, and it's quite difficult. So you think, when I'm singing, I sing in a cathedral. When I'm singing there, I think I'm in tune, and I'm pretty good in tune. I think I'm in tune, but am I really, or was I slightly sharp or slightly flat? I think I came in exactly on time, but actually, was I slightly ahead or slightly behind? In a cathedral, generally the choir is split into the two on there. We're on two sides of the chancel. It might be that our side is right on the beat, but they're not, or vice versa. Or it could be that we're both together, but we're all a little bit sluggish behind the beat. Now, the only person that can help us is the conductor, because we can't help ourselves. It's really surprisingly difficult, those sort of things. Sure, we can start the piece together and finish it and get louder and all those sort of things, but that final ounce of polish is really what a conductor adds. And it would be the same with a team leader.
Yeah,
Of
that's a
course,
good
they
example.
can cope without without the person sitting there, the chairman, if you like.
Yeah.
But it's a lot better with them.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great example. Really, really effective with that music comparison. You also have this really interesting concept called passing the baton, where leadership actually moves around the team instead of staying with one person. So, how can student organizations create more shared leadership like that?
Well, yeah, it's when I say passing the baton, I'm not talking about the conductor's baton. Just it's the image I have in mind is if you is a relay race,
Sure.
where with Usain Bolt. I know that he doesn't race anymore, but when you've got a relay race and you're holding a baton, and you pass it from person to person. And the thing is, I think of again another sporting analogy to give you the idea is that if you take okay, we've got the World Cup on at the moment, and of course each team, the US team or the English team they have a captain, the person with the armband on. They are the leader. But if I'm but the idea I want to get across is the person with the ball actually has the leadership. Because if I've got the ball, it's up to me in that moment to decide, well, do I go this way? Do I go to the left? Do I go to the right? Do I kick it? It's my decision and I am leading it. Now, as soon as I've done that, of course, the ball has gone. So, and then somebody else gets it. And then the leadership is with them. They decide which way we go. And again, it would be the same in NFL. Um, so, so yeah, that's the idea. It's this difference between what some academics have called headship, which is the person at the top, say the CEO or the team leader, has the headship. But the leadership is, as you just described, is moving round constantly. And what it means is that, well, we certainly, if we're part of a team at whatever level we are, it's it's not just the team leader who should make the decisions. I mean, we can all, or we can all contribute
Yeah.
to what's going on, and it's up to me to do that. However junior I might be, I might only have just joined the team, but I've got to have confidence, and the team should make it very clear that we all have confidence we can put our hand up and say, okay, I know I'm new to this team, but actually my experience is I don't understand. I don't think this is a great idea. And this is now, it doesn't mean that we'll stop whatever's the decision is, but we should have the ability to lead, to show leadership and to stand up and have our say.
And it's very empowering, I think, for the team to have those leadership opportunities, to know that the destiny of the company is in your hands. I think that's an empowering thing for the
Oh,
employees
absolutely.
to
Yeah,
feel.
absolutely.
And
Sure.
also, today's college students, they really do want to get experience in a lot of different things, in a lot of different areas, because they're unsure of which direction to head. So, if we can give them a lot of different experiences and let them choose where they feel most comfortable, that's where we can make sure that we have the right person in the right seat on the bus, which is great. And then if we ever have a situation where we're a man down, right? Somebody is out sick or on
Yep.
maternity leave or who knows what, then
Mm,
we can put that person in their place and they'll be able to seamlessly get in there and do a halfway decent job because they've had that experience before.
sure. Yeah. And all these different metaphors we're using, it's like as you said a moment or so ago, yeah, we're not sure which way we want to go. I mean, you're 20. Why should you know? I
Yeah.
mean, so that's the first thing. And so just try things on. It's like going and buying some clothes, but going and buying a jacket. You know, try it on. Look at yourself. Does it fit? No, actually, that color doesn't suit me, or it does, but that style doesn't. And try something else. And if you don't like them, walk out and go and try something else on. You don't buy the first thing you put on. So
Yeah.
I should say I did. I should. Yeah, when I was younger, I bought a whole pile of clothes that yeah, I thought I looked great in, and then no, I didn't.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good advice. Really, really good stuff. The other interesting thing about you is you actually failed to become a Royal Air Force pilot early on in your life. So, talk to us about what that disappointment taught you about resilience in life.
Well, it's like you said this right at the very start, I think, before that the importance of failing. Um, it's not that you want to fail, of course. I mean, none of us wants to, but you will soon come to realize, hopefully, that it's that you learn from the failures actually far more than you do the successes, whatever that means, whatever success means. Yeah, failure, it's not nice, but you do learn. Well, hopefully you learn. So yeah, I applied when I'd always wanted to fly ever since I was about 6 or 7. My dad was a pilot in World War II, flew big Lancaster bombers, and so I'd grown up with that sort of those stories, and I always wanted to fly. So I applied to the Royal Air Force when I was about 17, 18, and didn't get in. And that's when you've had a dream for 10 years at that age, that's a long time. And but what I realized was, well, it took me a long time to realize. I imagined that what they were really saying was, you're just never going to be a good pilot. Bad luck. And actually, I don't think they were saying that. I'm okay. I might not have been a test pilot, been that good, but I could learn to fly to a plane, and I eventually did learn to fly a plane. So they weren't actually saying that. I think what they saw, because it was a 4-day program that you go through for officer selection, what they could see probably very early on is I'm not a military guy. They could see straight off that I'm not meant to be here. They're not saying that, and I'm sure they would say, look, Charles, you're very nice. You're a nice young guy, but this is not right. It's not right for us, and it's certainly not right for you. And you might not realize that. You think you want to fly, and you can fly, but you're not a military person, because we need people who will do exactly as they're told, who follow the rules. And I'm not one of those people. I've spent my life not breaking the, not following the rules, not doing what most people do. And but it took me years, I mean, several decades to actually, I think, realize that's what, and that's what I think generally in interviews. I mean, some of your listeners will be having interviews in the next year or two. As I mentioned earlier on, my son works at Deloitte over in Houston. He's 34. Now, of course, I wasn't at his interview 13 years ago, but I'm guessing they weren't seeing. I mean, they know that he he doesn't know anything about tax. Of course, he doesn't. They knew he didn't know anything about accountancy or consulting, and they don't care because they know we can teach you that stuff. What we want in this interview, what we're really looking for is, are you one of us? Should you be here? Are you a Deloitte man? And if you're not, that's fine. You're nice, but are you going to fit in here? And that's really terribly important. And because for one thing, you see, Deloitte is enormous. I think it's got something like 470,000 people in it now. It's by far the biggest professional services firm in the world. Now, that will suit some people. It suits my son. He loves that, being part of something so solid. But it wouldn't suit everyone. And I can think of lots of people actually, no, I'd much prefer to go to somewhere where there's just 10 people. It's a startup. Now, it's not right and wrong either way, but you've got to work out what will suit you.
Yeah.
What's are you a big company person? Are you a small company person? Are you a team player? That's another thing. Do you like being with lots of people, or are you much more of a soloist? Again, no rights and wrongs, but you've got to give some thought to that, and that's all about understanding yourself.
Hmm.
Self-awareness is an absolute key. We touched on that earlier on, and one of the things about self-awareness is that you've got to find out who you are when you're 20, but you won't be the same person when you're 30 and when you're 40 or 50 or 60 or 70. As you know, I'm 72, and I am, of course I can remember those all those milestones, but in some ways I'm the same person, and in many ways I'm not the same person at all, because you've just got to keep reassessing, what do I want now? But you've certainly got to do it when you're 20,
Yeah.
and it's and just have the courage to think, no, I don't want to work for a Deloitte, or maybe I do want to work for a Deloitte. What wonderful, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff you're going to find out on the job. Certain things you're going to notice. I thought that I wanted to be working for a large publicly traded company when I was
Yeah.
young. And then I remember outperforming all of my peers. And then it came at the end of the year, it was time for bonuses. And they said, "Great, Mike, you've done a great job. You've gotten a 2% bonus." And I said, 2%? I said, I outperformed 50 other people who have the same exact position as me by all of the metrics, and I said I should get more than my peers because of that. And they
Yep.
said, no, well, here in this company, we only have, the 2%, and that's it. And I said, all right, I got to get out of here. I got to go to a 10-person company where I
Yes.
can actually reap those rewards.
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Yeah,
so
yes.
I
And it
found
comes
that
back
out on
to
the
where,
job.
and comes back to what we were saying about the clothes.
Yeah.
That silly analogy is, you try it out. And
Yeah,
if working in that company doesn't work, well, you give it a year and then go and find something else.
that's right.
And it's okay. You don't have to have it all planned out. Last week, I was lucky enough to I didn't meet him, but I was Victor Glover, the astronaut from Artemis,
Mhm.
was over in London. He was speaking at a conference that I was at, and now he's 50. And so 30 years ago, when he was at your listeners' ages, now he didn't say how long he wanted to be an astronaut for, but I suspect he wasn't thinking when he was 20. You know what? I'm gonna be an astronaut, and I'm gonna plan every step. No, I'm sure it didn't work out that way. I think he wanted to he went into the military, he wanted to fly, and then eventually, oh, I'm good enough, I can go to test pilot school, which he did. And then, oh, well, actually, there's an advert for NASA, and so it goes on. But these things are not planned. Life will just unfold in front of you, and it's up to you to um, just take the opportunities while they're open.
Yeah,
And
that's
what
really
an
good.
exciting journey. Gosh.
Yeah. Very, very good. I've really enjoyed this. For 72 years, you've been learning about leadership throughout all of these different companies, throughout all the different experiences that you've had. I'm wondering, have you been able to distill it down to like one thing that great leadership ultimately comes down to this?
It's making your people thrive, or helping them thrive. That's what you're there for. I mean there are thousands upon thousands of books on leadership, and I think in many ways we overthink it completely. It's very simple. It's not simple to do, but it's very simple in concept. Is you just want to help people thrive, and that's the same as if you are a CEO. So last week, again on this conference, I met a guy called Bill Anderson, and he's a CEO of Bayer, the big German pharmaceutical company. He's the group CEO, so a hugely big job. And he joined them 3 years ago, and he decided that this place is is not good. And he decided to restructure it. And that's what he's done for the last 3 years. And he said he's taken out 11 levels of management. 11. Because it's a huge risk, of course, extremely difficult to do that. But fundamentally, I think it's to help his people thrive, because they weren't. Because if it was a junior person, like say one of your listeners joined, they come up with an idea, and well, it's got to go to their manager, and their manager, oh, I'm not sure about that, so I'll give it. So she would pass it up to her manager, and then it goes up to another manager, and so it goes up. And by that time, the person at the bottom has got completely frustrated and dispirited. Nothing happens, nothing changes. And Bill just thought, we can't go on like this. This is where there's no innovation here. So I'm going to take the risk of restructuring. And so it's helping. So in that organ, at the highest level, you can think about helping people thrive. But again, coming back right down to our families, and that's perhaps the most important place, is that's what you're there to do with your children. I mean, there's nothing else, really. It's to help your kids thrive and be the best people they can be. And be, as we said right at the start, enjoy it. Sure, because yeah, life is going to throw stuff at you, but yes, try and make sure you can enjoy it, and if you're thriving, you will be resilient.
Yeah. I think that's a great place to leave this interview here today, thinking about leadership and helping your people thrive. If you can help the people on your team thrive, I tell you what, they will always, for the rest of their lives, consider you a great leader. And so I think that's what it boils down to. I think that's really, really nice. All right. So if our student listeners, if they want to connect with you, maybe they want to buy your book. Of course, the book is called A Question of Leadership. Where should they go to connect with you and get all of these great things?
Okay, well, the book's on Amazon. But if you wanted to connect, it's charles@charlesgrimes.com. So it's a very simple email address. Yeah,
Very good.
and I'd love to hear from people, really, because it's why I do this. I'm fortunate because of my age. The kids are off my hands. The mortgage is paid. I don't do this for the money. And of course, I like to get paid, but I don't do this for the money. I do it because it matters. And because it took me so long to get round to doing something that I loved, I am really keen to help young people do the. Don't waste 20 years as I did. It's just not a good recipe at all. No. So any way I can help people, please get in touch.
That's fantastic. The website is charlesgrimes.com, or you can just email him, charles@charlesgrimes.com. He would be glad to help. And what a wonderful resource for college students here in the United States to be able to reach out to somebody with as much experience as Charles. And here he is giving back, just basically saying, you know what? Listen, the mortgage is paid. I've had a good time. Now I just want to help the next generation. That's a wonderful thing. That's a really wonderful thing. So I commend you, Charles. You're doing really good work. So thank you for what you do.
It's been an absolute delight, Michael. Thank you.
Of course. And to our listeners, if you learned something from Charles today, which I know you did, he's got so many great nuggets in this interview. What I want you to do is share this episode with your entire fraternity or sorority chapter. You can drop the link in a group chat to all of the members. You can share it on social media. You never know who needs to hear Charles and his message today. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.